If you were born between 1988 and 1995, you were born at an incredibly important moment in history, and you have something very interesting in your natal chart. In this video, I'm going to explain what that thing is, what it means, and why I think your generation's time is about to come. And even if you weren't born during those years, stick with me anyway, because we're going to look at some really interesting astrology, which actually has implications for every one of us. Now, the story I'm going to tell today begins in 1993, when something pretty rare happened. That year, there were 3 conjunctions of Uranus and Neptune, and these planets move very slowly. They only meet every 170 years or so. In fact, this was actually the first conjunction of these planets since we knew about both of them, because they'd last met in 1821, and we didn't even discover Neptune until 1846. Now, conjunctions are moments when the significations of 2 planets combine to form the nature of the moment. So we need to know what Uranus and Neptune signify individually in order to interpret this conjunction. Now, Uranus was discovered on the 13th of March, 1781 by the astronomer William Herschel. So this was the first planet outside of the traditional planets to be found. And that was a huge deal, because for thousands of years, we'd thought that the solar system really ended at Saturn. So now this new planet just blew apart everything we thought we knew about the extent and nature of the cosmos. And that's kind of what Uranus signifies to astrologers. It's about change, revolution, shaking the foundations, the new, sudden revelations, and shifts in perspective. Uranus was the sky god in Greek myth, so we also associate Uranus with astrology and flashes of insight. Now, the historian of philosophy and astrologer Richard Tarnas has said that Uranus is most like the mythical Prometheus. Prometheus stole fire from the gods and was punished severely for it. The Promethean myth can be seen as a parable of technology, and astrologers tend to associate Uranus with technology. And then we have Neptune, the second new planet to be discovered. Neptune takes a lot of its meanings from its name, which of course conjures the ocean. Neptune is about the dissolution of boundaries, about the boundaries that divide human beings, about the boundaries that divide the conscious from the unconscious. This is why Neptune is associated with states of intoxication, with illusion, with delusion, and the imagination. Neptune is about the fundamental oneness of all things, the true oceanic nature of consciousness. Now, in 1988, Uranus moved into the sign of Capricorn, where Neptune was waiting. And over the course of that year, Uranus moved in and out of Capricorn. It entered it for the final time on December the 2nd, 1988. And then it moved through that sign and made its 3 conjunctions with Neptune in 1993. It moved out of Capricorn for the first time in April 1995 and left for the final time on January the 12th, 1996. All this means that if you were born between 1989 and 1994, you definitely have the Uranus-Neptune conjunction in your natal chart. And if you were born in 1988 or 1995, or even the first days of 1996, you probably have it as well. So what happened when Uranus, the planet of technology and change, met with Neptune, the planet of universal connectedness, in Capricorn, an earth sign associated with structures, with hierarchies, with old institutions? Well, the Berlin Wall and then the whole Soviet Union fell. This was a huge structure that suddenly dissolved. The world moved almost in an instant from one divided into 2, the capitalist bloc and the communist bloc, into one dominated by one power, the United States. And we had another development that historians of the future are going to look at as an epoch-defining event in history. We had the birth of the World Wide Web. And that period between 1988 and 1996, when Uranus was with Neptune in Capricorn, covers the period when the World Wide Web was born almost perfectly. Now, Tim Berners-Lee, a British scientist, invented the World Wide Web in 1989 while he was working at CERN, the Swiss-based international research center dedicated to uncovering the fundamental workings of the universe. Now, Tim Berners-Lee had a working prototype of the web up and running by the end of 1990. It was launched to the public in 1993, when those Uranus-Neptune conjunctions went exact. So Uranus and Neptune conjoining in Capricorn perfectly covers the birth of the World Wide Web. And that makes sense symbolically. The web was a revolutionary technology, Uranus, that connects us all together, Neptune. So if you were born at that time, you are born of the same energies that created the web. You have that Uranus-Neptune conjunction in your astrological DNA. I sometimes call it the internet placement. You are the real children of the network. And that's not all. In 1993, the year of those Uranus-Neptune conjunctions, a writer named Charlie McGee wrote an essay in which he coined the term Age of Imagination. The idea behind the Age of Imagination is that we've entered into an era in which technology means that creativity and the imagination have become the things that drive the economy. We moved from the agricultural age to the industrial age to the information age to the imagination age. And you can clearly see Uranus and Neptune in this idea. Technology, Uranus, and the imagination, Neptune. McGee was channeling the moment. Some people, artists, writers, philosophers, can do that. And I think the Age of Imagination is something we're going to be hearing a lot more about in the coming years, now that artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT, like Midjourney, like DALL-E 2 are blowing people's minds with the text and images they can produce. Now, as I've talked about many times on this channel, this is the age of air. And AI is pure air, it's connection. But invention and creativity are things of fire. That's something that you as a human being has inside you that AI doesn't. So you can still use creativity to thrive in this era, because true creativity is something that AI can't really replicate. And if it is creating something new, it's often because of the input of a human who's telling it which ideas to put together. Creativity and the imagination are still incredibly valuable. And if you were born with that Uranus and Neptune conjunction in your natal chart, you're part of what I'd call the Age of Imagination generation. It's your role to imagine a new world into being, a new world that harnesses the power of the network, of technology, and the imagination. But this isn't just about your generation, of course. Everyone alive today will take part in the building of that new world, even if it's by resisting it. But I think the Age of Imagination generation will have a special role to play. You have the energy of the global network, of revolutionary connective technology, of the disruptive power of the imagination in your astrological DNA. It's there in that Uranus-Neptune conjunction. Over the course of the next few years, you're going to emerge as some of the leaders of this new world, as much as we can have leaders in this decentralized, networked era. Now, this will apply to some of you more than others, and that's something we can really see by looking at your natal chart. And by the way, I am taking bookings for natal consultations right now, details in the description below. But if you have that Uranus-Neptune conjunction in a prominent place in your natal chart, such as on an angle or aspecting important planets, it's much more likely that you are living the spirit of that Uranus-Neptune conjunction, that you're a living embodiment of the internet placement. And often find that that conjunction can express itself extremely literally with some people, like with Bo Burnham, the comedian and musician who was born in 1990. He became famous on the internet for this.
Welcome to the internet. Have a look around. Anything that brain of yours can think of can be found.
The innovative musician and unusual human being Grimes has this conjunction in her chart. The visionary genius and inventor of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, has it in his chart too. But I'm not sure there are that many super famous people of your generation yet. That might have something to do with you being children of the network. But it's also true to say that your generation hasn't had it easy. A lot of you haven't been given the chance to really shine yet. In 2008, we saw the subprime mortgage crisis, which did so much damage to the global economy, damage from which we've never truly recovered. And that hit your generation particularly hard, because you were just entering the jobs market in the years after the mortgage crisis. Older millennials and Generation X and the boomers, they'd already established themselves. But I think your time is about to come. come, and here's why. What we tend to see in astrology is if you have a certain combination of planets in your natal chart, when they reoccur in the sky, you tend to have really important developments taking place of the nature of those planets. That applies to individuals and it applies to generations. Now, if you watched the series I made with S.J. Anderson on this channel on the astrology of the 2020s, you'll know that there's some incredible astrology coming in 2026, what S.J. has called the basket, and you can see all those planets at 4 degrees. This is the astrological configuration that the late great astrologer Andre Barbeau called the best astrology of the 21st century. He thought it heralded the beginnings of a new world civilization. And we can see that Uranus and Neptune are a crucial part of that configuration. They'll be in a sextile, and this will be the first major aspect of their cycle since the conjunction of 1993. They're going to be making exact sextiles between August 2025 and June 2027. So this will be a hugely important period of time when what was born in the conjunctional period of the early 90s, the World Wide Web, the age of imagination, and your generation is really coming to fruition. I think it'll be a hugely important period of time for many of you. Perhaps you'll be leading the creation of the new decentralized, networked world. You might be finding new meaning and prosperity in the networks that you found or participate in. You'll be applying your creativity to imagine and build the new, more connected, less hierarchical world. And for many of you, it will be your time. Now, if you want to know more about what the 2020s holds, now's the time to watch this video, the first in a 4-part series I made with S.J. Anderson on the astrology of the 2020s. This will give you much of the context you need to understand about where the world's going and where life could take you in the coming years.